You're listening to the Served Up Show, a podcast that features inspiring beverage professionals and topic experts that share their passions through meaningful content. Your hostesses, Bridget Albert, is best known as the Market Fresh Mixologist, an industry mentor with over 25 years of experience. And I'm Julie Milroy, best known for my passion for leading change and helping others grow in their careers. Grab a cocktail and sit back. Let's learn how we can make a positive impact in our industry.
Hey y'all, it's Bridget here. I'm really excited to introduce our next guest, Lou Bank, the visionary behind Sacred Agave, where he's dedicated to enhancing the lives of individuals in rural Mexico through his impactful initiatives. Not only is Lou a passionate advocate for positive change, but he also wears the hat of a podcast host, leading the insightful discussions on Agave Road Trip. Let's welcome Lou to the conversation as we dive into the fascinating journey of agave, community empowerment, and cultural preservation. So grab yourself your favorite agave spirit, sit back, and enjoy the show. Lou, welcome to Served Up. I'm really happy to have you on the show today.
Oh, I'm happy to be on the show. I really do appreciate you guys giving me a stage, a platform from which to preach my gospel.
Absolutely. We want to hear all about you, Lou. Can you tell our listeners about your background and really where your love of agave stems from?
Well, so my background is kind of a mixed bag, Bridget. I started my career in comic books. I worked in Marvel Comics for 6.5 years, then Dark Horse Comics for 3.5 years. And even before that, as a teenager, out there in Naperville, where you live, I was running a comic book store in high school. So it was all sales. And I had this weird thing happen to me where I acquired the mass market distribution rights to Pokemon comics before anybody knew what Pokemon was. And
wow.
Yeah, right. And it wasn't anything when I got the rights. And 4 months later, it was everything, the kind of everything where I couldn't manage the distribution myself. So I just had to hand it off to someone. And then every time somebody bought a 4-pack of Pokemon comics, I got a nickel. Now, it's not like it was enough nickels to make me a billionaire. But it was enough. It came out to about somewhere between $55,000 and $65,000 a year, which was enough income for me to not have to work for money. So I started doing pro bono work for the nonprofits I had been volunteering with. And so I in essence, transitioned from selling goods, consumer goods, to what I like to call selling salvation, working in nonprofits.
That's really amazing. So basically what you're telling me is that you are single-handedly responsible for Thor and for all of the scavenger hunts that we all went on during the Pokemon craze.
Yeah, I'll take that. Absolutely. So when I made that transition, I started running nonprofits really in like 99. And in the middle of all of that, I got hired by Rogue Ales out in Portland, Oregon. Are you familiar with them?
I am familiar with them. Yes.
Yeah. So I got hired by Rogue to run their marketing because the guys who founded Rogue and were running Rogue then are the same guys who launched Nike in the 70s, the marketing team. And they felt like if you didn't have 7 figures to put into advertising, that instead you should put your money into not-for-profits. They saw that I had all these connections. And so what they wanted me to do was get the average person who volunteers for, say, the Oregon Humane Society to think of Rogue Ales when they think of the Oregon Humane Society. So I would put together events for the society, fundraisers, make sure that our beer was at their events, things like that.
That's really, really cool. And so from that, what really transitioned you into agave?
Gluten intolerance. Before I worked.
Kidding?
No,
really?
No, totally serious. Before I worked at Rogue, I'd had maybe 4 or 5 glasses of beer my whole life, and I thought it was all like the same stuff, and I didn't find it interesting. And somehow I couldn't figure it out, but it would get me feeling more buzzed than just drinking straight tequila. So I didn't drink beer, and then I worked at Rogue, and John Mayer, the brewer there, introduced me to beautiful beer, and I fell in love with it, and then found out that I couldn't drink it, and I had to go find something else. And my dearly departed friend Mark Cox said to me, "Forgive the accent." He was British, and I'm a horrible impersonator. But he said, "We should go drink some mezcal, Lou. I think you'd like that." And it was like 2005. Ron Cooper was doing a Del Maguey tasting at Binny's. We went, and I was absolutely fascinated. And then we went again either later that same year or early 2006, and that was it. I was hooked on agave spirits.
So 2005 was when Ron did the Del Maguey tasting at Binny's, and that was also the same day that he came to teach a class about mezcal at the Academy of Spirits and Fine Service that I used to host on behalf of Southern Glaciers. So it's so crazy. I remember that.
Oh, man, I'll tell you. Honestly, Bridget, what I've discovered, and I'm not a spiritual guy. I'm a pretty fact-based guy, but there is really something that I keep seeing recurring in my life about agave that makes the world so very small.
Yeah, it definitely brings communities together. And I'm with you on that. You know, there is a magic about agave and its history. And so what came first, Sacred Agave or Agave Road Trip?
Oh, definitely sacred.
Sacred. So can you tell our listeners what that is, how it came to be, and then also talk a bit about your podcast?
Sure. So, I have got this background in nonprofits, and my wife and I made our first trip to Oaxaca in 2008, and honestly, not for mezcal. There were a bunch of extenuating reasons, and to take up most of your podcast to go into all of it. But it was like, hey, we have to do this and this and this, and there's also mezcal down there. So we went, and I met a mezcalero at an organic farmer's market, fell in love with his mezcal. And he invited us to visit his palenque the next day, but we were leaving. So he said, well, when you come back next year? And honestly, if he hadn't said that, I don't know that I would have come back. Like, I really like mezcal, but I like a lot of things, And so he invited us back, and I felt like that was such a kind invitation that I can't pass that up. So we came back the next year and went to visit him at his home to tour his palenque. And even though I had confirmed a few times, he had forgotten. So we're sitting there, and he's looking at us like he's not sure what to do with us. And we're looking at him like, when does this tour start? And his son walks in. His son is Eduardo Anales, Lalo from Lalo Cura. And he takes us on an 8-hour tour of his palenque, his fields, his home, his family. When I was at Rogue, one of the projects they gave me to do was to start a distillery. And, I thought I understood distillation, and I thought I understood, the whole 45 minutes of walk and talk, 15 minutes of drinking. And Lalo turned all of that on its head. But, I think to get to your actual question, right? Like, what is sacred? I think that a relevant nonprofit does one of two things, or both those things, and that is help to protect an at-risk resource or leverage an underutilized resource. So I make my money running educational programs for the Dolores Cole Education Foundation here in Chicago, and I think it's more than fair to say that every child deserves an opportunity to be their best selves. But I think it's also relevant to say that every one of these children growing up in a stressed environment, in a low income community, in a violent community, every one of those children is a potential answer to the problems that we have, right? So that's the underutilized resource piece of it. And I saw that when I saw Lalo's Palenque, and I also saw that it's an underutilized resource. I recognize that my consumption of mezcal is probably putting his resources at risk, and the resources of all of the families who do what he and his family do. And then I also recognized that I'd been drinking these spirits for a few years and didn't understand how they were made, didn't understand the whole pre-industrial side of this, and didn't understand how that existed. So I just kept visiting Lalo. And,
he made such an impact on you.
Oh my gosh. He continues to make an impact. That's not, it's not an exaggeration. Every time I visit him, there's something else I take away from it. Sometimes it's small and sometimes it's huge that I did not understand before. I've been visiting him since 2009 and he's still teaching me stuff. His onion has never ending layers to it. But
that's very cool.
But he also, he's a really smart guy, and he started asking me about what I do in Chicago. So I was telling about those educational programs, and one of them is this thing called Story Bus. It's a children's museum on wheels that we bring to pre-K kindergarten classrooms in primarily low-income neighborhoods, but also out to you in Naperville. And he mistook it, as many people do, for a mobile library, a bookmobile, and asked. Well, the way he asked it, he said, look, he wants to ensure that the children in his community have a better life than he has. He knows that doesn't happen if they don't learn to read. And that doesn't happen without books. And you can't find books in these rural communities in Oaxaca. So he asked if I could help him build a bookmobile for Santa Catarina, Minas. And I laughed and said there was no way a bookmobile would survive for more than a month on the roads of Santa Catarina, Minas. But it wound up becoming a library project that his family started. And they asked if I would help to raise funds towards that. And so I did my part. I raised a small piece of the funding for that first library, but it's what initiated Sacred.
That is really great work that Sacred is doing. Do you have tequila companies that come to you, or mezcal companies that come to you to do sponsorship? Or, are you working with any brands currently?
Oh, am I ever? Without, I'll say this, without the hospitality community, without bartenders, without servers, wait staff, Sacred wouldn't exist. That's where most of the money came from initially. And from there, the agave nerds, the mezcal enthusiasts, the tequila geeks started sending us money, and then the brands started coming around because they recognized that the people who make the buying decisions for all these bars, restaurants, liquor stores were paying attention to what we were doing. And so I think Vámonos Riendo Mezcal was the first of our corporate sponsors with actual spirits brands. Dark Matter Coffee, hands down, was they literally forced me to become a certified 501c3. But when you're talking about spirits brands, I think Vámonos Riendo was the first funding a water project in Zachila, Oaxaca. But yeah, then they just started coming fast and furious. El Bandito Yankee Tequila came to us to do some projects in the community where the people who work in the El Vejito factory and fields where they live. And then we got oh God, it was such a beautiful moment. We got a call from 1% for the Planet, this consortium of corporations that have pledged to give 1% of their gross annual revenues to nonprofits that have been vetted as good for the environment. So I got a call from them saying that they had a tequila company that wanted to direct their 1% to us, but we had to be vetted. And would we go through the process? And of course we would. And that company turned out to be 818 Tequila. And I gotta say, this still is a hobby for me. take a paycheck out of it. But we grew by literally 1,000% based on that phone call. Just the money that we get from 818 was tenfold what we had been getting before, and since then, people like multinational corporations like Campari and Pernod Ricard have also joined on, and it's changed the trajectory of what we're able to do, which in essence changes the trajectory of these rural communities in Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really incredible. And it's good to hear that 818 is partnering and being a great partner and doing the work on behalf of these communities. I really hope that helps to change some of the perception of the tequila by the beverage hospitality trade, because a lot of times when a brand is celebrity owned, the reaction 9 times out of 10 is, what does that celebrity need with my money? Right? What are they doing in a space like tequila? Because there's so many tequilas. So it's really cool that they really are putting their funds into something that's meaningful and thoughtful, and that could, perhaps change someone's life.
Well, it's funny. Whenever I get that line of reasoning, like that phrase "celebrity tequila," like to me, all tequila is celebrity tequila, except for Cascaween and Fortaleza, which are rock star tequilas. But I don't understand why an anonymous CEO owner that we don't know would be any different than somebody that we recognize from television and film. To me, the important thing isn't where did their money come from. It's what are they using it for? And you said the work that they're doing, and the thing that there's a lot of things that I love about 818 and Campari and El Bandito Yankee and all of these funding companies is when they come to me, they're not doing the work. What we do is we go to the mezcaleros, we ask them what their problems are, what solutions they imagine to those problems, and what resources they need to implement those solutions. And then we go looking for the resources. And so, the work is being done by the community. It's work they want to do in order to protect their cultural heritage, in order to protect their biodiversity, in order to protect the livelihoods of the community. And the resources come from these people, these corporations that recognize the beauty in rural Mexico and how. It's easy to look at this from our point of view in the what I would call like the organized, efficient world and think we have the answers. And so frequently, I'm seeing better answers coming out of these communities that I think we need to adopt. And as I said it a little bit earlier, I think a good nonprofit helps to protect an at-risk resource and helps to leverage an underutilized resource. And I think these communities are an underutilized resource when we start looking at solving problems like water insecurity, food insecurity, and climate change.
Yeah, I'm with you 1,000%. We really need to tighten our lens on these communities and be good listeners.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Just
that.
Be a good listener. And see what they need. And like you said, a lot of times, the solutions come from the people that are experiencing the issues.
Yeah, exactly that. One of the things that you see when you go down to a place like Zapotitlan de Vadillo, Jalisco, which for decades, while it's in Jalisco, wasn't really pulled into the tequila industry. But one of the problems that you see is suddenly all of the wild land and the farms are turning into field after field of monoculture Blue Weber agave in service of our tequila consumption. And so their local food sources, the farms that had been growing corn, beans, squash for local consumption, and the wild lands that were home to all of this biodiverse richness of plants that were food for these insects, that were food for these animals, all of that's disappearing. And so the middle school where 818 funded the build out of a library focused on regenerative agriculture, they have these, I want to say it's 6 hectares of land that they were renting out to a farmer to grow blue Weber agave. And so through 818, we've received the funding so that the school can take back the land, not have to rent it out in order to make funds to continue the functioning of the school. They now have those funds and they can take the land and do what they want with it. And they're rewilding it. They're replanting all of these different species of plants that were at risk of disappearing from the community because of our tequila consumption.
Well, that's a really great thing, to do, is replace what you freaking use. I mean, on, right? And I love the term rewilding. There's so much just to that term alone about the terroir of a place, right? And just really making it back to what it should be in the first place. So that's really, really neat. If a tequila company is listening, or someone from hospitality or from the trade, or just anybody, any of our listeners, and they want to learn more, about Sacred Agave and how they can get engaged and volunteer or, partner in any way, how do they reach you?
Oh, I'm like the easiest person in the world to reach. If you go to sacredagave.org, that's our website. You send a message through there, comes directly to me. If you go to our Instagram page at Sacred Agave, send a message there, comes directly to me. If you go to agaveroadtrip.com and send a message, it comes directly to me. And if you can't find any of those things, just send me a message at lou@sacredagave.org.
Amazing. Can we talk about your podcast? All about the Agave Road Trip and how that came to be and where our listeners can find you. And what do you chat about on the podcast?
Well, so it is a critically acclaimed award-winning podcast that helps Gringex bartenders better understand agave spirits, and rural Mexico. I try much like you do here with Served Up, Bridget. I try to make the podcast a tool that supports bartenders, that supports hospitality workers in the same way that they supported me when I started Sacred. I find that when you've got a product, and I don't want to sound like I'm throwing whiskey and vodka and gin under the bus, right? But when you've got a product that's primarily made in an industrial manner, it's really relatively easy to understand. And even with it relatively easy to understand, I think there are still nuances to whiskey that are lost on a lot of people, the differences between bourbon and scotch and like that, right? But then you get to something like agave spirits and the denominations of origin. When you hear the line, all tequila is mezcal, but not all mezcal is tequila, right? Like that's the cliche. And it's inaccurate, because if it were accurate, you'd be able to make mezcal in Jalisco. And if you could make mezcal in Jalisco, you can make an agave spirit, but if you call it mezcal, you are violating the regulations of the country of Mexico, and there's going to be all sorts of consequences. And as a result, all of these families are at risk of losing the resources that they have. So what I try to do is correct some of these cliches in the podcast, try to correct some of these cliches, and help these bartenders with repeatable lines that they can use when they're trying to explain this in a 15-second nugget to their customers, because they've got an awful lot of customers standing at the bar on a Saturday night.
Wow, I just love that. Can you let our listeners know where they can tune in?
Anywhere where you get podcasts, you can get Agave Road Trip. We release a new episode every Thursday and have consistently since 4th of July week in 2020. Mm-hmm. The first, oh my goodness, I want to say it's like the first 150 episodes I did with Chava Periban, who's got his own podcast now called Heritage Mezcal. And so now I do episodes just with a rotating list of other guest hosts.
Okay, that is wonderful. Would you be open to a lightning round?
Yes, I would love a lightning round. Though I'll say that when I was 8 years old, I was sitting too close to the television, and a bolt of lightning hit our antenna. My television exploded, and it scared the heck out of me. Are you going to do that to me right now, Bridget?
It might happen. You just never know. You're on Served Up.
Okay, hit me.
We don't use video, so if it happens, no one will see it.
My hair won't stand on end.
No, you're very funny. Okay, are you ready?
Yep.
All right. Mezcal or tequila?
Destilado de Agave. That'll teach you. You lightning me, I'll lightning you right back.
That's fine. That's fine. Margarita or Paloma?
Oh, God. I'll tell you, I have a very, very, very dear friend who made Palomas for me, and he would never make Palomas for me out of season. It had to be Texas grapefruit, and it had to be in season. And I lost that. Well, I've lost a lot of beloved friends over the last few years, I lost him last year. I can't drink Palomas anymore. I can't if Michael's not making the Paloma, I don't want it. So I'm going to go with Margarita.
Margarita is a good standby drink, for sure. Dive bar or craft cocktail bar?
I got to tell you, as much as I love bartenders and I love hospitality staff, I don't hang out at bars. I usually drink at home.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Is that you that's drinking with me? I thought I was just sad and lonely on my couch.
I know. No, I'm also here, brother, drinking at home as well. Mm-hmm.
Amen.
Amen to that.
Am I screwing up all of your lightning questions?
No, you're doing a really good job. A really, really good job. Bartender or mixologist?
Oh, goodness. You can't make me choose, because that's, in essence, that's a question of self-identification. And I'm not going to tell somebody who calls themselves mixologist versus bartender that they should be, one or the other. I'm going to go with anybody who's willing to bring me a drink.
Oh,
I'm like a politician. I won't actually answer any questions, will I?
I know. Are you running for president? Could you beat Donald Trump? That would be awesome. Okay. Okay.
Is that the end of the lightning?
No, it's not the end of the lightning.
Okay.
I just have a couple more here. Classic rock or Beyonce's new album?
Oh, okay. Well, this is easy for me because I stop listening whenever I get in a relationship, and I've been married now since 2007. What is that? 17 years. When I'm in a relationship, I stop listening to new music. So I'm not sure I could even identify anything by Beyonce. I have to go with classic rock, which to me is really just modern rock. Okay. That's how old I am.
Okay. Well, I am too, but I do know her new album. But here we go. All right.
Yeah, because you're a normal human being. I'm just not.
All right. Last question. When you have tacos, crispy tacos or soft shelled?
Well, soft shell. I would say tacos, which crispy taco is my childhood out in the suburbs of Chicago. And
Ortega.
Oh man, Ortega all day long. But
hell yeah.
But when I'm eating a taco now, that's a childhood taco, and I'm eating an adult taco now.
You're eating like a street taco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm also vegan, so it's got to be the right street. I'm not sure which street has the vegan street tacos, but this is what happens when you get old and you have heart issues.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Well, once again, I want to thank you for being on Served Up, first of all. But I do want to make sure that our listeners, once again, can hear where to find you, where to find the podcast again. If you could please repeat that information. So listeners, make sure that you go check out Lou and all the good work that he's doing.
No, that's really kind of you, Bridget. Thanks. So if you want to know more about Sacred and the different programs we have, how we help to mitigate water insecurity, how we provide agave seedlings to families who are finding themselves outside of the mezcal denomination of origin and having a hard time accessing agave, and so many other programs, go to sacredagave.org. To listen to the podcast Agave Road Trip, go wherever you get your podcasts. Or you can go directly to agaveroadtrip.com and listen to it there.
Wonderful. Well, on behalf of the Served Up family, Lou, I want to wish you just some great health and a lot of peace, man. Thank you so much for being on our show.
All that good stuff right back at you, Bridget. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening. Served Up is brought to you by Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits. Produced by Zunu.online. Music by We Killed the Lion can be found on Spotify. Make sure to subscribe to be notified of future Served Up episodes. Cheers!